As you go through life, you try to make the best decisions you can when it comes to raising your family. I am a wife, a mother, and I have a career outside of the home, but my personal road into motherhood ended up being off the beaten path. In the summer of '96, when I was 4 months pregnant with our first child, my husband and I were having lunch in a restaurant, and we were discussing childcare options. We had the same conversations that many young couples have at this time of their lives. What are we going to do when this child was born? Do we put the baby in daycare, or do we find an at-home daycare? Do I stay at home or work part-time? I love my job and didn't picture myself leaving after spending 7 years cultivating my career. While many people go through these same conversations, we all know there's never one right answer, as every family and every situation is different. Growing up, both my parents worked outside of the home. When I was younger, my dad worked days and my mom worked nights. Later, my mom worked days and we became latchkey kids, getting home from school to an empty house. At the time, I never realized how hard it was when both parents are working. I just knew they made it happen, especially with the help from my aunts and grandma. Back to having lunch with my husband, trying to figure things out. Unfortunately, we don't have family in the area, as we moved here from Southern California for my job. I work long hours, so daycare drop-off and pickup didn't really look like it was going to work out either. I heard stories about daycare where if you didn't pick up your child on time, they would charge you $1 a minute. Or worse, if you were later than 15 minutes, they would call the police. I already knew I was going to be that late parent whose kid was the last one at daycare. I already knew I was destined to be that mom. Then at that lunch, my husband made the comment that changed everything. He said, "What would really be good is if I stayed home with a baby." Up until that moment, I literally never considered that option. Looking back, I'm not sure why I didn't think of it, as he was always more domestic, patient, and more organized with our home than I was. Today, everyone seems to know a stay-at-home dad. I just recently read they even have a new stay-at-home dad Lego set, complete with a dad in jeans, the baby in a stroller, and the mom in business dress. Stay-at-home dads may have doubled in the last decade, but almost 20 years ago, there were not a lot of them around. After my initial response was of, "There's no way in hell we can afford that," the more I kept thinking about it, the more I knew it was the right choice for our family. So in the spring of '97, when our son was born, my husband quit his job and has been a stay-at-home dad ever since. I remember shortly after maternity leave was over and I was on my way back to work, the thought crossed my mind that I am fully responsible for the financial well-being of our family. Yikes. Now for guys, they grow up accepting the fact that they will be supporting their family. But for me, the mom, I never considered myself in that position. I remember thinking I really loved my job, and no matter what happened, we would figure it out. That was really the only time I felt burdened by that responsibility, and by the time I got to work, the fleeting thought had left my mind. 2 years later, we were pregnant again with another baby boy, and in 2002, our daughter was born. So how do we explain our setup to friends and new people we meet? This is sometimes a weird and awkward conversation. My husband describes our lives like a 1950s marriage in reverse. And really, that's probably the most accurate description. I go to work and he takes care of the household. When my husband would get asked what he does for a living, he used to say he only has 3 clients, but they're very demanding. Lately, he says he's a trophy husband. But the kind of trophy everyone gets for participation. When we explain our situation, people are always trying to figure out how and why. People have asked if my husband changed diapers. Yes. If he goes grocery shopping. Yes. Does he cook dinner? Yes. And does he do laundry? Yes. They've asked if he had been laid off. No. If he was ill. No. And one person even asked if we had inherited money. No. Have we had to make sacrifices to make this lifestyle work? Absolutely. We still live in the starter home that we bought before we had kids. We chose not to move down the street to the nicer development so we would not have to depend on a second mortgage or a second income for our mortgage. Our kids have everything they need, and of course, no kid has everything they want. Still, we always run across people who have struggled grasping our situation. I was a guest speaker once at a Rochester inner city middle school a few years ago. As a role model for working hard, getting a college degree, having a successful career, and raising a family, I shared my story and took questions from the audience. One girl raised her hand and asked, "Why do you want a man that doesn't have a job?" Just last summer, I was playing golf with a new business account. As the conversation turned to family, I explained our arrangement, and the guy, with a shocked and somewhat disgusted look, said, "And you're okay with that?" Not only am I okay with it, I wouldn't want it any other way. So at the end of the day, I still ended up being that mom. Not the mom who was consistently late picking up her kid from daycare. No, I was that mom who had chosen to stay in the workforce and have her husband stay at home. I'm a happily married wife of 24 years, the mother of 3 teenage children, one who's now a freshman in college, and I've had a rewarding 27-year career with the same company. Our family continues to thrive, even while my personal road into motherhood has been off the beaten path.